Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Hearthcenter, your show bringing you some of the hottest results from the week. I am Lotus Knight, your stream op, and one of your hosts for tonight. And I am joined by all the Canadian team tonight. We have, first of all, he's been joining us in Hearthcenter. Now regularly going to be part of the main squad. Every single week you're going to get to see him. We have the one and only Corridon or Corrodon.
Hey, how's it going? Yeah, great to be here. And yeah, as Lotus said, joining on a full-time capacity, so I'm pretty happy to be there and to be here with the nation's Team Canada team. So it's going to be fantastic.
Nice. Our second caster here tonight. He's been on Hearthcenter many, many times. He's the captain of like half the THL teams, basically. The one and only Diamond.
Hello. Yeah, it's exciting to be back. And yeah, with the Team Canada, it's going to be a good time.
Yeah. I'm excited. It's great having you as always, Diamond. Next we have for his Hearthcenter debut, if you don't count the times he came here after winning a series, we have the one and only Super Chicken.
Hey everyone.
Chicken, are you excited for tonight?
Yeah, no, I'm definitely excited. I mean, excited to be on my first Heart Center and to talk about all the interesting matchups in draft series.
Yeah, we have quite a lot to talk about draft. Before we hop into that, though, I want to thank the one and only Neji Boston joining us tonight, also from Canada, with to talk to us about draft series. He had a very cool position, very interesting draft. Neji, it's great having you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Got a great group of guys here tonight. Excited to talk about the draft series.
Awesome. So, since I'm with the full Canada team, I'm expecting just to have nice conversations about the other teams, or at least that's the stereotype I hear. Whether that is true or not remains to be proven. So, are everyone ready for us to hop into draft series?
Ready to
Yeah,
get
for sure.
going.
Awesome. So, just a reminder that draft series, 12 different captains got a chance to draft players in THL according to a snake order. The captains were ordered randomly, and whether that's fair or not is going to be debated for future iterations of the series. But we have 12 teams with some very special players bringing it in, and we're going to start by reviewing the teams in Group A. So I'm going to call on some of our hosts here to just tell me who are the players and a bit about them. So I'm going to start with Corridon. Tell me a little bit about F2L Silver.
Yeah, so starting off, F2L Silver, you've got Captain Itachi, who had a pretty decent draft for himself. First off, he grabbed Berserk right out of the gates. Then himself in the 2 seed, Dr. BOMD coming into the third, picking up his fellow AFG and current Hearthstone caster, Dragon Rider, and filling out his roster. He grabbed Yo Daddy in the 5th round.
That's a hot team right there for Itachi. Just a lot of F2L names. Now, as for our second team, let's see. Super Chicken, why don't you tell us about our second team
Like from Group C
from
or
Group
from
A?
Group
From
A?
Group A.
Okay. So yeah, Lotus Knight as the captain. Yeah, 1 seed base, Lotus in the 2. I'm Vino Spumoni. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Oh, that's
In the
fine. We
3.
guess all pronunciations here.
Desharmo in the 4, and Trito in the 5. Man, this team is, I mean, I think you might be able to say they're the favorite in Group A. At least they would be from my perspective. I think Base has been playing insanely well in pretty much all standard series lately, and having
Mm-hmm.
her in the 1 seed is pretty crazy. And also I think that they're just the highest average PR team, which is always an advantage.
That's true, especially in a series like Draft where everyone got a chance to draft whatever order they would like. Um, Before we talk about specific results and expectations for the draft series for Group A, I'm going to ask Neji Boston. Why don't you tell us about the next team, the not entirely Justins?
Yeah, we got not entirely Justin's incredibly, which also spells Neji. And we have always just in time as the captain. He is the 1 seed. T-Stu in the 2, Mick in the 3, MPV in the 4, and Roadrunner in the 5. And this is, I believe, 3 out of 5 members of the legacy team Golden Wisps from last season as well. So that's pretty interesting. I'm not sure if Justin had that in mind while he was drafting, but definitely a really strong team. So
Yeah, he did
we'll see
mention
how it
that,
goes.
I think after the draft. And then I think the other two were like actually somewhat close in name to the other two members on Golden
Yeah,
Wisps.
Huh,
yeah, always lethal and always just in time.
interesting. That might have been a secret Justin strat that we just didn't know. Last but not least, Diamond, why don't you tell us about the last team in Group A?
So we have Judotops, Scorpius, Eternium. So he had the first overall pick, and he took Always Lethal in the 1 seed, and then he drafted Geranium Battle, Justspine, and then Dark Seed, and then he was the captain, so he's in the 5 seed. So not a bad team. I was a bit surprised with the Always Lethal, like #1 pick, but I definitely expected him to go in like the first round.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Always Lethal was insane in Legacy this season. Diamond, I believe you did a little bit of research of the general status in Group A, what matches or around. The goal here is for us to debate what team do you expect to dominate, or which player do you expect to dominate in each seed. So why don't you give us a bit of a rundown, and then I'll ask some of the people here to comment a bit on what they think about your rundown.
Sure. So I don't really have, I guess, a specific team. I was more looking at the seeds. So in the
Sure.
1 seed, I think Justin planned really well for his field. He didn't bring OTKDH himself, but he brought 2 Mutinists in his lineup. And then, as well, a funny thing to add is Always Lethal's Donkey was just the Fury Hunter from the MT. And then in the 2 seed, Itachi brought like a full anti-aggro lineup, like the Quest Shaman. It's very interesting to see. And then I think he's
Mm-hmm.
favored in his seed, particularly lineup wise, because everyone else brought warriors and some kind of form of aggro, so he might be able to do well there. And then the
Sure.
3 seed, Mick went for Brute DH. And then in general, they had like a lot of similar classes. Like there's like 2 aggro druids, but then also Celestial Druid.
Mm-hmm.
But I think overall, I would favor Vino, like just player wise. I think he's really underrated and good. And then the 4 seed is just kind of a mix of like a lot of the same decks, like a lot of aggro and mid range and quest rogues. But then
Sure.
in that one, I would favor Dragon Rider. And then the 5 seed, Roadrunner was the only one to like bring Garrote and Fatigue Lock into entirely aggro into the aggro field, and I think he's gonna do well. And I know Tridu and Yodaddy are playing, and they have like almost a mirror match with a couple changes in the Hunter.
Nice. Some really interesting observations, a lot of different players, and a very interesting play field to see some players going control to try to counter specific decks like Hunter. I'll open to everyone. Let me start by calling Neji. Any thoughts on these particular players? Anything you think Diamond is not seeing here? What's your thought here?
For Group A, right?
Yeah, for Group A.
Yeah. The 1 seed is really, really stacked here. I think honestly any of the matches could go any way here. 2 seed also fairly good. I mean, Lotus Knight, you have the highest PR, so I'd probably favor you. Because I
Fair.
mean, you're a 1 seed player and you're playing the 2, so it's pretty insane. And 3 seed looking pretty strong as well. I'd probably go with Mick and Venus Spumoni, probably to win the most matches here.
Mm-hmm.
4 seed, I'd probably say Ducharmo and Dragon Rider. And 5 seed, probably go with Trito just based on PR. And I know he plays in standard series while Yo Daddy is primarily a wild player, I know. So have to see how he
Fair.
does in the standard series.
Fair. Chicken, anything you want to add to what Neji said? You want to disagree, or to what Diamond said?
I think T-Stew is maybe getting a little overlooked here in the 2 seed. He's definitely lower PR than Lotus Knight, but I also think he could arguably be the best 2 seed in this group. He's pretty consistently like a high ranking legend player, and I see him on ladder pretty often grinding the game. So I think he's a really, really skilled player to be in the 2 seed, and I think he'll do pretty well as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, T-Stew is nuts. I'm scared to play against him, but I'm scared to play against way too many players. Now, Corin, any final thoughts on Group A you want to share before we move into Group B?
Yeah, just a few thoughts. I think for your team there, Lotus, Trito in the 5 is actually very impressive. Trito has always pretty much been a 3 or a 4 seed, and has done pretty decently. Usually breaks even or does very well for themselves. So down in the 5 seed, I think Trito is going to do extremely well. I've seen a little bit more. On ladder right now for Trito, taking it a bit more
Mm-hmm.
seriously, I think, putting a lot more work in. So I think the 5 seed for Trito, I think Yo Daddy at that PR is a fresh PR, I think, from Wild maybe. So you've seen a PR like that. So I think Trito down in the 5 is pretty favored. And running back up to the 3 seed, I always got to shout out my man, Dr. BOMD. Guy's doctor, has the kids, and he's already double legend in Wild and standard as well. So puts in the work, definitely knows what he's doing out there, and I expect to see great things.
Sure. Yeah, that's a player that, honestly, BOMD is another player that I consider just criminally underrated because he can play so well. And I don't know. I don't think a lot of times he gets the respect he deserves. So I'm looking forward to see what happens in Group A as draft series continues because there's a lot of potential and a lot of great players here. Any final thoughts anyone would like to share on Group A? Anything you all want to disagree? Um, and I do want to know the drafts are rigged by definition because anything THL does is always rigged. But any final thoughts on Group A before we move into Group B?
I think as others have said, it's going to be interesting how Daddy has done, because some wild players have flourished in the standard series. Like I recall Slad and Rotted Zombie on F12 Red a couple seasons ago were doing really well, but I know others struggle as well. So I think that's the most interesting. I guess player in the series who is kind of new to standard, or might not, or at least standard in THL. So we'll see how that goes.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Now, shall we, as we move into Group B, I'm going to start with Diamond himself. Diamond, why don't you tell us about the first team in Group B here?
Sure. So we have Saku's team, who is him and Judo Chop are the lowest PR players. So it's interesting to see how they would draft compared to the higher 1 seed players. They have We Can Say League now. So we have Wild 9 in the 1 seed, Ron Mexico in the 2 seed, Seth for Christ in the 3 seed, Booze in the 4 seed, and then Saku himself in the 5. It almost looks like a legacy team in a sense, even with the PR, which is kind of interesting to me.
That's
This team
true.
could happen in legacy.
Yeah, they do fit PR wise for sure. Now, I will call for the second team. I'll call on Neji to tell us a bit about Turtle's team.
Yeah, we have Turtles team. Turdy Wordies Poggy Woggies. Great name. We have obviously in the 1 seed, Donkey in the 2 seed, Turtle in the 3, Mojo in the 4, and Skirt in the 5. And I mean, Skirt wasn't actually on the team, he was on my team, but Turtle asked for a trade live in the draft, and I got Diamond on my team, and Turtle got Skirt. So we'll see how that pans out. But definitely a scary team. Donkey in the 2 seed is pretty nuts.
Yeah, I would say so. I expected Donkey not to last 2 rounds in draft. I don't know how he stayed that long in the list.
I think he was Turtle's first pick, actually.
Yeah,
Avi
Avi
went
was picked
second
in the second
round.
round.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Avi
Avi
went
dropped.
pretty late.
Yeah, Avi dropped a lot. Donkey was actually Turtle's first round pick.
Yeah, but Donkey took like 8 players to get him. I don't know how though.
Yeah,
That
I
makes
think that
no
was
sense.
pretty late in general.
Yeah.
I think people may have forgotten that Donkey like kind of dumpstered pro this
He
season.
did. He went like what 10-0 in pro,
Something
Yeah.
like that.
I
Yeah,
think
I
it was
think he
something
might
like
have
that.
lost
Didn't
the
he go
last
undefeated
week.
until he lost in
In
playoffs?
playoffs, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And then he was in the MT as well, so I don't
And
know.
has the best website.
This is true.
True.
He's using the website to get the submit on. You should make sure to pick him. He can rank it for
Mhm.
you.
I think it's the same thing that we were talking about with Dr. BOMD. It's one of those players that gets really good results, is really, really great, but is kind of overlooked, just not, I don't know, maybe from, you can't say results oriented because Donkey did fantastic, but just,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's one of those things that it's a name that it's so synonymous with the website. Maybe you don't think of it's a real person, a real player that really knows what they're doing out there.
Fair. Um, that's fair. I think for people who played in pro, that might have changed a bit, but I'm sure the general THL community might still take a little while to get to everyone. Um, Now since Neji just did this, I kind of did this on purpose so the next team can be introduced by Super Chicken. Chicken, do you want to tell us about the third team we have here?
Sure. Yeah, we have mediocre and doomed. With the most over PR'd player in THL history, Neji Boston,
Fair.
as the captain and 1 seed. Nice Jewish Owl in the 2, Rice Bowl in the 3, Sheepies in the 4, and Diamond in the 5. Um, yeah, pr- pretty strong team overall. Pretty stacked PR as well, like highest PR in the group again. Some of that may be due to Neji's absurd close to 1,000 PR, but I mean the rest of the team also has pretty high, like all have high PR for their seeding.
That's true. Neji, I want to ask you, did you have any particular strategies when you were drafting this team?
Well, I had like the 10th pick, I think. I think it was 10th. So I didn't get to pick exactly like the player I wanted, obviously, because they were gonna go pretty quickly. But I was happy with my draft. I had like a sort of like a draft board, and I had like tiered it for like 2, 3, 4, and 5 seed, and I got somebody in each seed that I wanted. So
Nice.
um, yeah, I'd say it went pretty well, and we'll see how it goes.
That's awesome. We will see how it goes. Our last team here, Corden, why don't you tell us about our final team in Group B?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the best team in Group B personally. No bias in any shape or form.
Nope.
It's my own team. Yeah, my own captain team here. DraftKings. So I got Mr. Python in the 1 seed, Jamie's for the 2, Goose in the 3, myself slotted into the 4, and Anfall into the 5 seed. I was pretty happy with my draft. I got Python. I played Legacy with Python quite a bit, so I really knew how he likes to prep, how he likes to play, and what an amazing player he is. You know, he's always up there for crossover.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest kind of fell in. I mean, Jammies and Anfall were 2 players that I have run into in multiple series, and I've always wanted to get on a team with them and see what it is. And Goose was just too unbelievable not to take when I got him in the 3rd round. So it was all in all, I think a very good draft, and we're looking forward to it.
Yeah. Now I will open for us to talk specifically about Group B and all of its players. Corden, why don't you tell us how you're seeing Group B, how you expect this week to go for Group B? Reminder that all teams are playing against each other this week within each group, so each team plays 3 times in a single week, and the first team is guaranteed, and the second team overall from all 3 groups is guaranteed a position in the next week. So tell me, how do you see Group B going, Corridon?
Group B is going to be scary. As much as I might want to flex and say, our team's going to be pretty great, we did get put into, the one with Neji, who had an insane draft, being able to put himself in the 1 seed and pretty much take whoever he wanted for the 2 and kind of bully the 2 seed. Rice Bowl sitting in the 3 is pretty insane as well. And, the fantastic trade for Diamond for Skirt, just rounding that out with Sheepies in the 4 it's pretty terrifying. So I'd never like to say, never do, but that's definitely the team we're looking out for in B. I think the biggest surprise was Avi dropping so low in the round and Turtle picking him up and actually putting Donkey in the 2 seed as well. So I think the 2 seeds in B are probably some of the scariest across the board.
Mm-hmm. I'd agree with that. Any other thoughts you'd like to share before I start asking other players' opinions about Group B?
Yeah, I mean, when I was looking through lists and things, it wasn't nothing too crazy jumped out. NJO brought a bit of a pretty much the same, similar style as Itachi, where he brought the priest and really just said no aggro, no way. Looking through the rest of the list, though, they were pretty standard. There's lots of hunters, lots of warlocks, as you expect, and I really didn't see anybody going too crazy out of the box. Some Moonfang hunters, especially with the MT just happening, a lot of lists were copied, I feel, that just performed
Yes.
very well. So I really didn't see anything too crazy. Maybe just outside of NJO and his, anti-aggro lineup was really what clicked to me.
Okay. Some interesting notes here on Group B. Super Chicken, what are your thoughts on Group B? Do you agree with what Corridon said? Will you add something? Do you think we're not seeing a certain team who might be doing a lot better than we all think?
Yeah, I don't know if Group B is necessarily the strongest group in my opinion. I think maybe the next group is a little bit tougher. I mean, I've definitely taken a closer look at Group C than Group B, but
Mm-hmm.
I think Group B is definitely strong, but I don't know if they're gonna be the toughest group. But I think it will be definitely pretty close between a lot of the teams as to, who moves on and who doesn't.
Sure. Any particular players you expect to do really well, even though we're not seeing, or who would you keep an eye for here?
I mean, I think Donkey in the 2 is just gonna sweep the entire week. I had like, I honestly don't. I haven't. I'm not sure if his lineups will do or like line up super well into everyone else's, but I think skill wise, he is head and shoulders above all the other 2 seeds,
Fair? Even Ron?
especially Ron.
Fair? Now I want to ask Diamond here. Any thoughts you want to share on Group B before we move into the player that probably knows the most about Group B, other than Corridon?
I think it's pretty solid group overall with all the matchups. I think as the interesting part as well about the turtle trade was regardless me or Skirt was gonna be the 5 seed. So it's like I guess that part there didn't change, like I was gonna be the 4 seed or whatever.
Sure.
So yeah. And he didn't even make his pick, then he picked Mojo Powell. So yeah.
True.
But it should be fun. I know
Yeah.
there are like results already flooding in for the group.
There are. We're not going to review all the results because A, we don't have time, and B, the display would be a lot tougher. And this is more to be just a recap of what was drafted and some of the ideas that we're seeing. It's a mixture between Hearthcenter and Tavern Talk, really. But I will ask Neji for his thoughts on who's going to win Group B and anything we should keep an eye off. Is Nice Jewish Owl beating Donkey?
I'm not so sure. I will say, as captain of my team, I had no input on Nice Jewish Owl bringing the full control lineup, but we'll see how it goes. Um, I think Donkey is definitely favored into his field, but the 2 seed is pretty stacked here, honestly. So I think some of the matches could go either way. I haven't looked at Donkey. I don't know if he has aggro decks and that Owl countered. I actually don't know what Donkey has yet, but I guess we'll see. The 5 seed Diamond did bring like a soft target aggro lineup, and there's a lot of aggro on the 5, so I think Diamond's looking pretty good.
Fair.
And the 1 seed, pretty standard. Besides, Wild 9 brought a full aggro lineup, which was interesting, whereas the other two and myself brought a bit more standard meta decks. So
Sure.
we'll see how that one goes too. But
Fair.
yeah, it should be a good group, honestly.
Yeah. Should be
Does
a
Poison Rogue be aggro? Neji?
It did today. Yeah, I did bring Poison Rogue, which was not. I'm not sure about the pick, but we'll see how that pans out.
Fair. Poison Rogue is an interesting deck as long as you don't get oozed.
Yeah, I was seeing that like most OTK lists now are running Need for Greed and not running Viper, so I just made all my decks pretty decent to OTK. So yeah,
Yeah.
we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. There was a reason why I put a Viper instead of Need for Greed in my deck. Because I
Smart.
expected some people to go with Poison Rogue, and I wanted to make sure I survived into that. But any final thoughts anyone wants to say about Group B before we move into Group C?
I think Group B might be outside of a few outliers, in Donkey in the 2, and I mean Neji almost 1,000 BR. I think it's probably one of the most evenly cut groups. Like these, PR out of the way, these all do look like they could be legitimate legacy teams. It's going to be interesting. I'm excited to see Mojo Powell jumping out of the 5 into the 4. Had an
Sure.
amazingly strong season last year in Legacy in the 5, going like 9-2. So I'm
Yeah.
interested to see. I'll be playing against him, so it'll be nice to see how he performs in the 4 seed. I think I wouldn't say there's a massive jump from 5 to 4, but there's definitely a bit more of a skill gap there. So it'll be interesting to see how he performs.
Awesome. Anyone else has any final thoughts on Group B? Alrighty then. Let's move to Group C. We have 4 more teams to talk about, and to talk about the first team, Super Chicken. Do you want to talk about your team, the first team in Group C?
Sure, yeah. Nail's our captain. And yeah, he drafted me first in the 1 seed, then C-Mac, then Wild Rose, and finally Fish in the 5. Um, yeah, I remember when Nails drafted me or I found out Nails drafted me, he messaged me, and then we kind of discussed what we wanted to pick in each spot.
Mm-hmm.
And we pretty much got all the players we were looking to get. I think C-Mac was easily our top pick in the 3rd round.
Mm-hmm.
And Fish and Wild Rose were definitely in our top candidates as well in the 4th and 5th rounds respectively.
Nice. Good. Some teams were able to get around where they expected, which is always a potential strong result. And this is definitely a strong team other than Nails.
True. Yeah, Nails has been a little bit sick lately. He really was not feeling well last night.
Aw.
So well, he's playing his match like right now, I think.
Oh.
Yeah. So I'm gonna see how that goes. But yeah, he hasn't been feeling great, but I think he's feeling better today. But yeah, last night for lineups, um, he was having a bit of trouble. So I think the rest of us were kind of helping out a lot with that.
Well, I do hope Nails gets better soon. But we will see if he can recover and beat. I don't know who he's playing right now, but beat whomever he's playing at this moment.
Is
As
he playing right now?
Do you want to spoil and say who it is?
Oh, he's against Mum Kid.
Okay. That's a really good match.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wish that was on stream, but that said, should we look into the players in F2L Gold? So, Corridon, why don't you tell us who is in Rebobson's team?
All right, so coming out of Rebob, he pretty much almost drafted an entirely EU lineup, I think. He grabbed Magnificent in the 1 seed right off the bat, following it out with the very strong a Liquidox in the 2 seed, which is pretty unheard of. Rebob put himself in the 3 there with the remainder of the drafts, grabbing Vampire Knight, who I think is everybody was saying is extremely under PR'd for being into the 4 seed. So great pickup there. And finally, Slad coming in and being the 5 seed for F2L Gold, the second F2L team we're going to see in the draft series.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, overall, I believe Slad is EU as well. I might be incorrect there, but for the first little bit there, Rebob looked like he was going for the strong EU team to see what he could do for the draft series. But with the Vampire Knight pick, or Vampire Nighthawk pick, he definitely um, threw that off to the wayside. But I think it's extremely strong team. Rebop in the
Mm-hmm.
3 is super impressive, and everyone knows Liquidox and the heroic story of never changing his lineup for every pro week pretty much, and going
Yeah.
extremely undefeated with it. So
I mean, he
yeah,
just didn't change through nerfs multiple times.
yeah, he just did it. So and I think we all can expect great things from him in the 2 seed. That's for certain.
Yeah. Our next team, we have your Mumkeds team, the second team to draft. Diamond, do you want to tell us about your Mumkeds team?
So your Mumkid's team, the Brewmasters, he has Dabs, himself in the 2, Caleb, Yockster, and then Lefty 2-1-1-1. So yeah, I think it's a pretty good team. I'm not sure which pick he was, but in my opinion, I think like Dabs or Donkey would have been the #1 pick, and I think he got him third.
He
I'm
was
not
the
sure. And then
second player.
a second player, okay, yeah, like he got the Dabs pick, and I was like, that made sense.
Yeah.
And then Caleb, I don't think anyone really has an idea. Maybe the members of the team knows, or the opponents know who they are, but newcomer to THL entirely.
Mm-hmm.
And then Yockster, who I think you know, right, Corridon? A little more.
Yes, yeah,
And
I
then
do.
Lefty, like long-time THL player in the 5, so should be interesting. And I think he drafted pretty well. A nice bold pick of taking the player, and no one really knows, but maybe Momkid knows.
Nice. We're
Yeah, I
going.
think that was the biggest one that threw for the loop was I thought Caleb would stick up there a little bit longer and be a little bit more of a lower pick just because he's not as well known, just joined I believe over the off season as things were quieting down. So you see the 475 fresh PR.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're going to need to see Caleb's performance in this scenario since it's hard to say what's going to happen for new players. We have one more team to go through Group C before we talk about the overall results that we expect. I want to call Neji to talk about this final team. Neji, why don't you tell us about Donde in the 5?
Yeah, I mean, the title of the team kind of gives away how crazy this team really is. I think this might be one of the best teams, if not the best team, in my opinion, in the draft series. We have Agent PWE's team. He is the captain and the 1 seed. Saber in the 2 seed. Chewy in the 3. JR Juggerlaw in the 4. And Donde in the 5, which is pretty insane to say.
Yeah.
Donde is obviously a really good player, so seeing him in the 5 is pretty nuts. Otherwise, PWE obviously very good. He is at the top of crossover for the last season, so he did very well.
Mm-hmm.
Saber, I believe, is new to THL, but 550 PR. New to THL obviously means you're doing pretty well on ladder, so you're doing something right. Chewy, I believe, is from EU, and also a really, really good player. And JR and Donde have been in THL for a while. Also strong players that usually play in and around the 2 seed in the PR series. So seeing them in the 4 and 5 is kind of nuts.
Yeah, that is a really interesting team. I don't get how this happened because, by all accounts, this team should not have happened. Being honest here. Now I will call our Group C specialist here, Super Chicken, to give us his thoughts on Group C. What do you expect to happen here, Chicken? I know you've been preparing for your match. You know all the decks that people brought. What do you see so far?
Yeah, this is I do think as I sort of alluded to before that this is the strongest group in the draft series.
Mm-hmm.
Um I think based on like average team PR and just based on the strength of the teams as well. Uh like that the one seed is crazy. I don't really want to play against any of these people.
Fair.
And I did lose to Dabs already today, 3-2. So Brewmasters are already doing pretty well with their matches.
Mm-hmm.
In the two seed is like two seed is also really strong. Like everyone has I guess it's not like that crazy, but like 3 550 PR players, including Nails and Liquidox, who are I mean, they're like pretty much perennial MT players.
Yeah.
Then your mum kid and Saber all. I know your mum kid's a strong player. I don't really know anything about Saber, or what series he usually plays in.
Mm-hmm.
Inter,
They're a new
um,
to
and then
THL.
yeah, the three seed's pretty strong. I played against Chewy in the one seed in Hero last season when he subbed in, and he's a pretty solid player. So having him in the three is nuts. Rabobson and CMAC are the two Hero 3 seed finalists from this season. So you have like extremely strong players there, and then Caleb's kind of the wild card, I guess, who we haven't seen very much of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I don't know. Every seed is pretty crazy. I don't know too much about Lefty and Slad, but I've heard they're strong players. I know Donde's a pretty solid player, especially in the five. And then Fish
Yeah.
is also the hero finalist five seed from F2L. So everyone's insanely strong in this group. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I think like I would say like maybe Dabs is probably the strongest player in the whole group. Um, like him being a pro champion and just doing super well in MTs lately.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I'm also biased because I played with him and I do consider him a good friend.
Fair.
Um, but I think like I don't know. I'm playing on his pro team next season. Oh, spoilers.
Spoiler alert.
but
That's fine.
but yeah, I don't know. I do think Dabs is the best player in this whole group, and I think he's gonna like sweep all of his matches. Not like 3-0, but as in uh win all of his matches in his group.
Fair. It does sound crazy to think that someone's going to beat you, Agent BWE, and Magnificent. Diamond, do you want to share thoughts on these particular um, notes? Unless Super Chicken has anything, I hope I didn't cut you off early.
No, that was pretty much, or those were kind of the main thoughts I had.
Awesome. Diamond, any thoughts you want to add about Group C?
I just quickly looked up Sabretooth and he is like top dinner and donkey. It's kind of interesting actually. Like in 2017, he just finished in top 200, and then his next like top dinner finishes in June 2021, along with July, and then right now he's at rank 1, 2, 3. So at least he's like, so he's been. I don't know. I think that's interesting, just playing in 2017 and then returning and doing well 4 years later.
Nice.
And then I think Chewy is gonna kind of go under the radar. Like I think I agree that Dabs, there are a lot of crazy people here, but I think Chewy's just gonna slide in there, and I think he will do well in his seed.
Nice.
He's kind of newer to THL, I think, but he's played in Pro and then expressed interest to play other series as well.
That's awesome. Corridon, anything you want to add about Group C?
Yeah, I mean, I think Agent PWE had the strongest draft in the entire draft series, even having the last pick. Goes to show, just having himself in the 1 seed, he got to really handpick his 2 and 3. And then, I mean, I can tell you how he got Donde. It was a little bit of tomfoolery. But you know, Donde was that shiny apple on the tree that we were all supposed to be leaving for last as a funny joke. But Agent, you know, took it, and I don't blame him. I probably would have done
No.
the same thing come on my turn, because you know, having Donde in a low seed like that is absolutely insane. I don't blame Agent whatsoever. If four more turns, and I would have grabbed Donde myself,
Oh,
forcing me
everyone
down a
would.
seed. Yeah, it was. It was a funny joke the first 2 rounds, and third round you see a 400 PR player and you're kind of just salivating. But at the same time, I think there's a lot of names that, you know, Yadster is one of them that has been around for a few pro seasons and just got back into Legacy. And I think, again, I know we said Dr. BMD, Donkey in the same way. I think Yadster is one of those players that hasn't had a lot of tenureship, but is probably one of my arch nemesis. I know him personally. He's a really, really great guy. Met him in person, played at a lot of lands with him. I beat him once and only once, and every time he has absolutely trashed me every time after that. So I
Nice.
expect to see big things out of him in the 4. I think people won't know what to expect out of him, and that's kind of where you win, especially, you know, in terms of someone like Caleb as well. You don't really know what to expect, so those are always the wild cards that can usually find you the points you need to get.
That's fair. Some good points by Corridon as we reach the second to last person to talk about Group C. Neji, anything you want to say about Group C?
Yeah, I'll talk about a few seeds. The 1 seed is just stacked for every single team. It's kind of crazy, honestly. I find it interesting in the 2 seed have Nails and Your Mum Kid, which was the 1 seed match in the Pro Series finals that just happened. So seeing them both in the 2 is
Yeah.
pretty nuts. And obviously, Liquid Ox, we said, insane player, went undefeated like 2 seasons ago with the same lineup. And then Saber is the newcomer, but obviously very, very good. And then the 5 seed, I think Donde is probably going to clean house here, but you never know. Somebody might come
Mm-hmm.
up and take the challenge and win that. But the other 3 5 seeds, I think, will probably be very close matches, pretty even.
Sure. I think
Yeah,
something to notice is like the overall level of draft series is just so high, and we can't understate how good these players are. I don't think anyone expected the field to be at this level.
Yeah, I was very surprised. Like once all the dust settled, like I didn't really take a huge look at the player pool, or I guess I didn't. I think more just I didn't realize the average strength of the players went before the draft. But
Mm-hmm.
kind of as the dust has settled now and all the teams have formed, it is kind of saying like, oh, like this person's in the 4. How is this even possible?
Yeah.
And stuff like that.
Yeah.
yeah, it really goes to show that, you know, there were conversations about how the draft should go, snake draft, random, league. It was a lot, but at the end of the day, you were going to be getting a bunch of quality players no matter where you were drafting. I mean, we see
Yes.
Agent PWE had the last pick and just probably had the strongest draft for themselves. And all around the board, I mean, you only write these teams down in your wildest dreams, you know. Um, some of the players here, seeing them together, and honestly, it's really cool to see people that you necessarily wouldn't be able to see play against each other, right? I mean, name a time
Mm-hmm.
that you're ever going to see, uh, Dr. Fish play Donde. It's probably never going to happen in an actual PR series. Donde is always probably going to be a 2, and I think Fish is probably either going to be a 4 or 5. So it's really cool to see, even with the diverse PRs, getting the opportunity to see some really good Hearthstone, and it allows people to showcase, maybe I'm a 5 seed, but I can hang with a 2 seed, or maybe I'm a 1 seed, but I got handed by a 4 seed. So it's really interesting to see how these teams lined up, and it's going to be cool to see that going forward.
That's true. A note in that sense of players who used to play in different seeds, like Lefty used to be a 1 seed. I don't know
Yeah,
if
I
people know
mean,
that.
yeah, it's one of the biggest things I think that, Donde's fantastic in the 5. People forget Lefty just was Slad even is, I think pretty quiet, and Dr. Fish had, a 9-2 season in Hero. So
Mm-hmm.
as much as we want to say Donde in the 5 is crazy silly, there's no joke in that 5 seed. So
No, definitely not.
quality of player is extremely, extremely high.
Yeah. Any final comments about the overall players before we go into our checkout question?
Uh, yeah, I think it's kind of interesting. I guess like Pee Wee getting the last pick. I think initially it seemed getting the first pick in the draft was like a huge advantage, but I think you could kind of look at it now and see like, oh, Pee Wee was actually able to pick up two really strong players back to back
Yeah,
for his like 2 and 3 seed, which was pretty crazy. I think there was definitely maybe like because I think there was some discussion beforehand as to whether like who should get whether the like, people should get
mm-hmm.
placed in like the first pick order, but since it was a snake draft, I really don't think that there was an inherent advantage one way or another, and I think Pee Wee's draft kind of showed that.
Yeah. I actually thought it was reverse. I actually thought the furthest you were, just because of the high level of players for the 1 seed, I thought the person who went last in draft actually had the advantage. I don't know if that's true or not in this scenario, but the fact that you could get a stronger 3 and a stronger 5, I thought could play a role. But that was just my weird hypothesis and trying to math out something that really wouldn't math well.
So I think the fact that he was a 1 seed really helped him out. If it
Very.
was anybody in a lower PR, I think it'd be a different conversation, because you wouldn't like the makeup of the team would look completely differently, right? You wouldn't have Agent as your 1 seed. You'd have Saber as your 1 seed, or whoever you choose. Everyone gets shifted up a seed. So it looks a lot different. I think Agent being a high PR himself and being a great player
That's
really
true.
helped out in the last pick. I think if you saw a Judo, Saku, or even myself as the next lowest PR at a 350, it's a lot different. But I think any of the other captains getting a last seed there, it's not a problem.
Fair.
I
Um,
think the inherent thing too as well of just getting the back-to-back pick, because then you can kind of plan. It's like, oh, I like this player and this player together, because maybe that's what he was thinking when he got Saber and Chewy. He's like, oh, these are two really good players I can get back to back, and then obviously the JR Donde coupling.
true.
But overall, I think like everyone drafted, I think pretty well, slash like had their own inherent strategies, because I could tell, I guess like some people, especially in the first round, like who they favored among the 1 seeds. Like I know Tachi went for Berserk because he liked F12. Same with like Ox being picked up by Robobson. Like obviously these are good players, but you can kind of see like who's played with each other before and who they picked as well.
That's true. I'll bring us all together for checkout questions. So first of all, I wanna thank everyone who came here tonight. We had great talk about draft series. It's a lot of fun to talk draft. I hope draft has been a lot of fun getting to play with some new people, different people that you haven't before. I personally got to meet Trido and Vino, and it's been a lot of fun to talk to them about Hearthstone. I hope you all have been having this experience. So while I thank you for being here, I also want to ask you all our checkout question for the night. And our checkout question, as you all already know, is what card or archetype are you most excited for next season? Is there something crazy incoming that you're all looking forward to? And I'm going to start with Corridon. Corridon, thank you so much for being here. Any thoughts on next expansion?
Yeah, no, thanks for having me again, Lotus. As always, it's been fantastic. You lead a great cast, my friend. As for new cards and new archetypes, there's a lot of cards and I haven't really kept up with it. I think the latest one that just came out for Demon Hunter kind of solidifies what I'm going to like, and that's Big DH. Flanking Maneuver just
Yeah.
came out, which is, I think it fits extremely well into what Big DH wants to do. I'm also excited to have hero cards back. I think those have been some of my favorite things, seeing like Galakron's Awakening, getting those hero cards, especially when Dr. Boom was introduced. I think it's a really cool mechanic and it adds a lot to it. Knights of the Frozen Throne again with the Death Knight cards. So I'm excited to see hero cards come back.
Awesome. Um, Thank you one more time, Corrodin. Diamond, our eternal captain here. What are your thoughts on next expansion? And as always, a super thank you for being here tonight.
Of course, thanks for having me. I don't know, this next engine looks like really cool. Like I've been kind of liking all the sets that have come out. It definitely looks a bit crazy. I think I've liked like the Paladin legendaries in general, but I think like Cariel just like the taking half damage because of the weapon is like a really interesting concept I've never seen before. So that should be a cool card. And plus, yeah, as Gordon said, hero cards are cool. Glad they're back.
Yeah. Thank you one more time, Diamond. Super Chicken, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I hope you had fun. It was great having you. I want to ask you, any final thoughts, and what are you thinking in terms of next expansion?
Yeah, no, I had a ton of fun kind of just theorizing and discussing like all the stuff with draft series. And I think like especially draft series has been really cool to talk about because it's so different
Mm-hmm.
from any other series that kind of runs regularly in THL. So that's been great. As for the archetype that I'm really most excited for, I'm a bit of a Libram Paladin fan, so I think Satan the Scarlet could fit pretty well in there, or just some sort of hand buff Paladin with
Fair.
that. I think that's going to be pretty good. Hopefully, Libram Paladin's been one of my favorite archetypes for, the past, I guess, year and a half or so now that it's been around. So hopefully it has, one final expansion that it does well in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Libram, I mean, the deck has come back so many times after being hit a few times, after rotation happened, that deck just doesn't die. So it wouldn't be a surprise to see Libram again. It's interesting to see a new interaction and a new version of it. One more time, thank you so much for being here, Super Chicken. I hope you enjoyed Hearthcenter.
Yeah, it was great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Neji, um, I want to ask you, first of all, thank you so much for being here. Any thoughts on next expansion? Anything you want to say? Any cards you're looking forward to? Anything we haven't seen that you think we really should be paying attention to? Maybe you found the next corridor creeper.
Maybe. But yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun. But as far as the cards go, honestly, people might hate me for saying this, but I do like Priest. I just haven't liked a lot of the recent Priest decks, like Control Priest, like Baron's Priest or AFK Priest, as I like to call it. I like Priest decks that actually have win conditions. I really like Priest combo decks that had Mind Blast and stuff like that. Those are pretty fun to play. So the new hero card for Priest does have deal 5 damage every other turn on the hero power, which does make me excited. The Priest can actually kill people without making them concede. So that's pretty cool. And yeah, just hero cards in general. Knights of the Frozen Throne is my favorite expansion ever. I just love the hero cards, so I'm glad they're bringing them back, and hopefully get some new archetypes and don't have to deal with quests every single game.
Fair? That's true. I really hope we don't. I wasn't going to answer this question because a lot of my answer would be probably still going to see a lot of the same, but Corridon had a point to add before we close the show.
Yeah, it's kind of has nothing to do with draft. I just, as everyone knows, we all the guys here, myself, Chicken, Diamond, and Neji, we are playing in the Hearthstone Nations tournament put on right now for Team Canada. We actually made it 3-0 straight to the playoff round that's happening on December 10th to 12th. So if that's being streamed, which I believe it is on ATK events, I'd love to see everybody out there and support us. There's a couple other THLers in there as well. The Netherlands also booked their ticket. So the Hunter, Magnificent, who's in the draft series, a few of them will be playing as well. So a lot of THL still out there. So it'd be great to see some people.
Awesome. Yeah, great to see THL in all tournaments. One thing I want to remind everyone, and I say this almost every show, so you're going to hear me say it one more time. If you want to play on stream, we are looking for draft matches for stream. You can DM me, you can DM Dr. Fish, you can DM Sagu. We'll find the show for you. A lot of times they're still open, and if they're not, we're going to do our best to find you a time. So bring your match on stream. It's a lot of fun. You're going to get some cool players checking out your match and talking about you. So take that as fun feedback on your play if you would like. That said, I believe that is it for us tonight. Hearthcenter will be back. I don't know if we'll have a show next week or not. We will see. If enough people ask for it, we'll make one. Maybe. I need to see how my schedule next week is going to be. But that said, worst case, we will see you in a few weeks as the season begins. Reminder that there will be a award show coming soon. I believe it will be this weekend. The exact time will be posted whenever Donde posts it. And there is going to be next week, on next Saturday and Friday, I believe, is going to be the team reveals. But more information on that will be posted in content announcements at any moment now.
The award show's at 8 Eastern on Friday.
Okay.
It starts with Wild and Pro, and then there'll be a quick changeover for the Legacy and Hero.
Awesome. So a lot to watch. We're going to try to bring you as much content as we can, and I hope y'all have a great draft series week. We will see you later. Have a good night, everyone.